stuck between a libertarian and a Republican. Welcome to Publitarian Podcast.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ronald Johnson, Publitarian, coming at you again with another episode of Publitarian Podcast, your humble Tier 1 podcaster, stuck between two ideologies, Republican and Libertarian. I'm giving my thoughts and feelings and opinions on life. That's what you're here for better or for worse. It is cold in the penis of America right now. It's, 50 degrees. That's a big deal. For my fellow Floridians, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm happy to announce that we have a happy beer fridge today. You'll hear the beer fridge kick on at some point in time. The hum that I can't get rid of in the background. And there is beer in the beer fridge. And Mrs. Publitarian taught me a trick today. Shout out to her. She was like, that... Oh, there it goes. She was like, that if you have a tungsten ring, which a lot of manly men do, any kind of actual hard metal, like wedding ring or any ring that's tungsten, titanium, any of the hard metals, she was like, you have an automatic beer bottle opener built into your ring. And I was like, bull butter, don't believe it. So she was like, watch a YouTube. They'll show you. So I did. I watched the YouTube video. And I am proud to announce that it does indeed work, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have a ring, don't do this with gold or silver or any of these softer metals. You will dang your ring. But if you got tungsten or something like that, I have a tungsten wedding ring. So I thought I would just do this live. So I'm going to hold the beer bottle up here and try and open it with the ring. Hook it under there. Open. Just like that. Amazing. So shout out to Mrs. Publitarian for that. Now I can enjoy a beer while I rant about politics and the news of the day. Speaking of news of the day, how about that FBI raid on Roger Stone's house? I mean, that looked like freaking Waco in the 90s. They had SWAT team, full tack gear, the vests, the night vision goggles. They were like loaded for bear to come take this old man out of his house to be questioned. I'm sure any of my listeners would be aware, but just in case, Roger Stone worked briefly with the Trump team. He's also a boogeyman of the left side of the aisle because he's pretty successful at getting people elected. He worked famously with the Nixon administration or Nixon campaign, and he has his own style about him. He's very fashionable. He doesn't mince words, so it's pretty much any politically correct person's worst nightmare. So he has had some process crimes that he is being questioned about. Zero to do with the Trump campaign, zero to do with Russian collusion, which Bob Mueller is supposedly supposed to be investigating. So whatever happens, if there's any kind of break in the action, the story is starting to look good for the Trump team. Mueller finds one of his 5 people that he has that's on the Trump campaign that he can lean on, and he goes and leans on him. He's done this with Papadopoulos. He's done it with Manafort and Michael Cohen, another one. So anyway, Roger Stone hasn't done anything wrong, and he was treated like a criminal, an absolute criminal. I remember the whole innocent until proven guilty thing, like one of our core tenets of our justice system that is no longer there. And I love the fact that CNN was there. Of course, a couple of days after the story has had a chance to percolate in the news cycle, we find out that CNN, one of their guys, used to work for Mueller, and there he is. He gets tipped off by, not Mueller, Comey, I think. He gets tipped off by them, and then CNN is just magically there. to have their cameras and lights and everything ready for this big raid. And the only reason they did that, make no mistake, is to have fodder for their base. Because the people on the left side of the aisle need this constant feeding. Like the laboratory rat hitting that bar for a pellet. They need that constant something is happening with Donald Trump and his campaign. And that's how CNN gets viewership. I mean, yeah, they're all lefty shills as well. But a lot of it's for ratings. They have to do this. They have to keep that heat on Trump, especially if there's any kind of break in the case, which there has been. So anyway, Stone's already out. He got brought in, and then within a few hours, he was already out on bail. And Stone's been fighting all this himself, basically. Matter of fact, he was selling a T-shirt that helped pay for his legal defense fund. And I bought one. It said Roger Stone did nothing wrong. And on the back, it's got him doing like the Nixon peace sign. So that's pretty. He's really good at branding himself. That's what he did when he left the FBI office. He's got his Nixon peace signs up. I thought it was pretty funny. So anyway, Roger Stone has done nothing wrong, but he is still got his neck under the boot of our justice system. And I, for one, am really tired of the two-tiered justice system. It's like the good old boy network and local politics. You know, whoever you know, if you know people, then you're good to go. There's not much you have to worry about it. I mean, my mom used to be a city commissioner a billion years ago. And when I was a dumb teenager and would speed around town, I could name drop my mom and boom, the officer would let me go. Kids, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I was just telling you that's the reality of the situation. And that's just local politics. So now take that and multiply that into federal politics or world politics. It's the good old boy network. It just on a larger scale. So that's what's happening. You got this guy, Donald Trump, that has come into the political arena with zero political pedigree and shown the American people that you can make promises and you can keep them and you can get stuff done. And it is driving the left and the right crazy because like Limbaugh said last week, I think it was last week, the jig is up. Now people know that you can get into politics and you don't have to play the games and you can get things done. And that's a threat. That's a threat to their ecosystem. That's a threat to their very existence. And they can't have it. That's why both sides of the aisle, especially some people on our side of the aisle, I'm extremely disappointed in attacking Trump. Ann Coulter, for one. Of course, Ann Coulter is like on the Trump train one day and then off of it the next day. I've never seen anybody hop on and off a train that quickly. She must have a horse she's riding. Right up to the train. Hops on. Whoop. Nope. Stay there. Stay there, Trigger. Keep going. Back off. Back on. Back off. So, yeah. Anyway, it's just... I'm not saying like Trump is the Messiah and you have to be like 100% on board with everything he's doing, but he hasn't shown yet that he doesn't know what he's doing. And every time he makes some kind of strategic move or he's not moving as fast as people think he needs to move, they just pounce. And I think it's because our side of the aisle has like the beaten dog syndrome. Like we've just been beaten down for so long that we don't know how to win. So when somebody comes along and we see any kind of falter, any kind of fail, we're just used to getting kicked in the teeth by the left. So we just, yeah, okay, yes, sorry. And the Republicans, the Libertarians too, have just been on the losing side of it for so long, losing like in the culture and in some the political arena, that they don't know how to win anymore. Trump comes along, he knows how to win, he knows how to get things done. And like I said before, people on both sides of the aisle just don't know how to take it. They don't know how to interpret it. So I, for one, have been enjoying the winning. This isn't even what I was going to do the podcast about. This has just been my feelings as I was sitting here and starting to record the podcast. Also, before I get into what I was going to talk about, because that wasn't it, I wanted to thank everybody for the positive feedback from episode 35. I got a lot of feedback saying, hey, that was cool. I didn't know about type 1 diabetes. For those of you who didn't hear the last podcast, I took a break from the politics somewhat and I did an interview with one of my Twitter followers. And she has type 1 diabetes and she just wants to bring awareness about the disease. And it's totally different than type 2. Like I said in that episode, I think they should give it another name besides, because as soon as you hear diabetes, you think, oh, it can be helped. It can be cured with diet and exercise. Nope, not type 1. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. That was episode 35. But anyway, I got a lot of positive feedback about it and people saying, hey, I didn't know about this disease. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. I got some diabetic followers as well now. So thank you for being here and thank you for listening. Now, I did not do a podcast last week, and like I have said before in previous episodes, I don't have the luxury of sitting down at the same time every time and doing a consistent podcast. I try to get one out of Tuesday of every week, but sometimes because I have a real job besides this, it doesn't happen. So last week I was going to go on a big rant about the Gillette ad. It's kind of old news now, so I was going to do a video of it and talk about the ad, but like I said, it's already 2 weeks gone. But conservatives, we don't forget. I mean, I'm never going to buy another Gillette razor. I will vote with my dollars. Dollar Shave Club, Harry's, or I actually use a safety razor. So yeah, real man points there. I actually use a Badger brush and a safety razor. But if I do use a disposable one, it's going to be Dollar Shave Club or Harry's or something like that. Gillette can suck a duck for all I care. And I will say this about it, though. People are missing the forest for the trees. The lefty people think that men were offended by the ad, and we weren't offended. We're just tired of politics and indoctrination being in ads, especially throwing shots at a large swath of your base that buys razors. I mean, I am not a multimillionaire CEO, but even I know that I would not hire an advertising campaign that does that, an advertising company that does that. Stupid. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on the Gillette ad. I didn't want to get too bogged down in it. I had a whole diatribe, but it's old news now. What I was really wanting to talk about today, and I may call this episode the fact war versus the emotion war. I haven't decided yet. That's what I really wanted to talk about. In the world and this country, we're starting to see a civil war brewing between the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle. And it's getting closer and closer to where there's irreconcilable differences. The left just can't win in an arena. They need to go after you and punish you and dox you, because a lot of conservatives look to God or a higher power or have some kind of moral compass. They have been unwilling to fight that fight, and other podcasters have covered this as well, so I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on this, but a lot of the right side of the aisle is waking up now and starting to use the left's tactics against them. Laura Loomer, a very good example of that. She's starting to, shout people down and make disturbances in public places when lefties are talking, and so many others are doing that too. The kind of like guerrilla journalism, and it's not a fight that we on the right wanted. Like, most of us on the right are just free thinkers. I would even say apolitical. We just want to do our job, make our money, and live our lives. But the left has kind of dragged us into this fight. They just keep poking the bear, which is funny because we're the ones that have all the guns and the self-defense training. But that's another story. So anyway, what's happening now is we're being brought into this civil war reluctantly. I would say most of us on the right side of the aisle don't want this fight. But here we are. It's happening. The fight is happening. And while we fight this fight, I've been seeing videos on Instagram of brave souls like Flecka's Talks and Fog City Midge getting out there and interviewing people. And what I'm noticing when Flecka's and Midge are out interviewing these people, like at an anti-Trump rally or women's marches or wherever they're at, they are being attacked with raw feelings and raw emotion. And that's what I'm seeing now. I'm seeing not only a war between the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle. I'm seeing a war between logic, facts, data, and emotions, feeling. And that's where the disconnect is happening. And by the way, this is no slight to Fleckers or Fog City Midge or Black Mike or any of the others that are actually getting out there and doing these interviews and confronting these people with facts. Yes, facts, data, and logic are super important, and I'm glad we're doing it. This is me just saying that we can add yet another tool to our already existing arsenal that we have. Ben Shapiro is a great example of this.
Well, thanks don't care about your feelings.
I know Anish listens to this podcast. I know you're going to kill me for the Ben Shapiro impersonation. Wasn't even that good. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to.
Yes, hacks don't care about your feelings. Well, actually, logically, if you would sit down and think about this,
But the problem that the Shapiros of the world aren't understanding is that we are now in a war with the left. And we keep throwing facts and data and logic at an enemy that is impervious to facts and data and logic. I'm not saying we dismiss the facts and data and logic at all. Don't misunderstand me. But what I'm saying is some people on the left side of the aisle really do have a cognitive dissonance now. Like, they're gone. Red Pilled America has done a good podcast about that. It's where there actually is like a Trump derangement syndrome. Their world has been challenged with data that doesn't add up in their world, so they don't know what to do. They're just living in their own world now. They're just breaking out in a rage fest because they can't deal with the reality that's in front of them. Whereas people on the right side of the aisle deal with facts, data, and logic and see the world how it is. And the left side of the aisle doesn't. So the mistake that we are making on the right, and I've seen some other young people on Instagram make the same point, like in YouTube videos, that we also need to start making emotional arguments as well. We can't just rely solely on facts, data, and logic, even though that's our first inclination. The problem with facts and data is they don't register with an emotional voter base. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that they're not great. I'm telling you the state of the point that we are in this fight. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation because I don't suffer from cognitive dissonance. This is where we are in the fight right now. And there is a cult of personality that exists more so in the left than in the right. And I hear it, especially from women all the time. Like, if a candidate looks a certain way, oh, well, he's nice. He seems nice. She seems nice. And the left side of the aisle knows this. They know they don't need facts and data. They know the media will cover for them. They just need to have a good-looking person up there that looks a certain way and talks a certain way, and they will get their voter base locked down. And that's unfortunate. That's why Beto did so well. Beto O'Rourke in Texas. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's why she's doing so well, too. They look a certain way, they talk a certain way, and they have these very emotional points nailed down to where they have them just rehearsed and ready to roll. And yeah, there's no facts or logic about anything that AOC is saying, but she sells it so well because it's so compelling and it hits you right at your heart. And we missed that boat, and we need to start using the left's weapons against them. Make emotional arguments. Make moral arguments. And then also provide facts and data. That way it's a double-edged sword. Do both. Anyway, don't hate me about the Ben Shapiro impression. He's a good tool. He's a tool. But seriously, he's a good tool for our side of the aisle. And he's a necessity, but where we make the mistake again is we are using one tool. It's like having multiple enemies with multiple skills coming up against you, and you've only got the one trick in your book. And it's just our facts and data and logic. And then we're being surrounded, and we're like,
oh, facts and data.
and then we get, overwhelmed. Democrats, lefties, they move seamlessly. If you block them in one arena, they've already come around to your backside to stab you in the back. That they move seamlessly. It's like a warrior class versus a rogue class, if I could be nerdy for a minute. Like, we're all warrior. We've got the facts, data, the big hammer right up front. Boom. And the Democrats, the rogues, have already gone behind us, stabbed us in the back 50 times, and we're gone. It's just, who does everybody want to be in gaming? And who does all the damage? The rogues. Anyway, it's time that we start using their tools as well. Make compelling arguments. Obviously be truthful, be honest, but we haven't tapped into that emotional side yet. And like I said, I'm hearing a lot of buzz from my younger viewers and listeners that are telling me the same thing. So what I'm saying, even though I went off in 5 different directions there, is that we need to start bringing emotional arguments as well. Start bringing some feeling when we have these debates. If we just go facts and data all the time, yeah, we'll red pill some, but I think we could red pill more if we use more emotionally based arguments.
We don't like this, man. Yeah, you scary us.
I know, scary concept, right? We need to start using the left's weapons against them. Make emotional arguments. Make moral arguments. And then also provide facts and data. That way it's a double-edged sword. Do both. Anyway, don't hate me about the Ben Shapiro impression. He's a good tool. He's a tool. But seriously, he's a good tool for our side of the aisle. And he's a necessity, but where we make the mistake again is we are using one tool. It's like having multiple enemies with multiple skills coming up against you, and you've only got the one trick in your book. And it's just our facts and data and logic. And then we're being surrounded, and we're like,
Oh, facts and data.
and then we get, overwhelmed. Democrats, lefties, they move seamlessly. If you block them in one arena, they've already come around to your backside to stab you in the back. That they move seamlessly. It's like a warrior class versus a rogue class, if I could be nerdy for a minute. Like, we're all warrior. We've got the facts, data, the big hammer right up front. Boom. And the Democrats, the rogues, have already gone behind us, stabbed us in the back 50 times, and we're gone. It's just, who does everybody want to be in gaming? And who does all the damage? The rogues. Anyway, it's time that we start using their tools as well. Make compelling arguments. Obviously be truthful, be honest, but we haven't tapped into that emotional side yet. And like I said, I'm hearing a lot of buzz from my younger viewers and listeners that are telling me the same thing. A good example of that is Red Pilled America, this new podcast that's out. I'm really impressed with this podcast because they just tell stories, and they start with the punchline of what they're going to talk about, and then they tell this emotional story that will have you bawling your eyes out, usually by the end. You've even forgot what their first point was, and then bam, they get you right at the end, and they tie it all in. And that type of compelling storytelling is what we've been missing on our side of the aisle for a while. So I would encourage you guys, yes, be up on your facts and data, be up on your your logic game, but know that you are fighting a war with a person that does not care about facts and data, that they're in their own reality. And as the great Herman Cain said, we can't save everybody, but we can save the savable. So try the facts and data. If the facts and data don't work, make an emotional argument of some kind. As long as it lines up with your facts and data, you're solid. And that will do it for me on this edition of Publitarian Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, if you need to get a hold of me, you can DM me on Instagram, or I am on all of the social medias as Publitarian, or you can email me at publitarian@gmail.com or thepublitarian@gmail.com. You guys have a great week. See you next time.
listening to Publitarian Podcast. Copyright 2019.